Don't know why. So tonight we're going to talk about the law of opposites. In the last session, Antoinette mentioned the law of opposites. She spoke about it, but we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into it, and it's going to be quite mental. Not mental as in loopy mental, but mental as in like using our minds to understand the concepts. Because for a lot of us, we use our minds as a way to bypass our bodies and our feelings. But the truth is, our minds are pretty damn useful if we direct them effectively. And I do believe that this is one of the ways that we can really use our minds to direct them. So let me just start off by saying that most of what I'm going to teach you tonight, I learned from Dr. John DeMartini. And when I first went to a DeMartini workshop, I was like, this is what he said. He said something like this. I'm paraphrasing. He said that when the mind is unequilibrated, when the mind is like in this polarity, this is good and this is bad, then our emotions are activated and then we lack clarity. And so if we can bring this balance to our minds, then our emotions stabilize. So what I heard was, oh, thank goodness, never have to deal with an icky feeling again because I can just use my mind to equilibrate it and then all will be well. So I just want to tell you that I did do that for a number of years and that was a complete bypass, right? So like every single time, we often talk about bypass, is this spiritual bypass? I want to tell you that every single tool has the potential to be used in a bypassy manner, all right? And this is this is no different. So I'm going to start out in the outset by saying, do not think that you can use your mind to equilibrate your mind to outrun feeling the feelings, because that's what I thought you could do. And it worked. I'm not saying the tool didn't work. It worked very effectively. But had I not been actually trying to bypass my emotions, it would have worked even better. Okay. So I'm going to just put that right out there for those of us, those cerebral ones of us who like to live from our neck up, because you might go, oh my God, this is like this. I can get behind this. This tool I can smash, right? Because it doesn't require you to actually do any of the feeling stuff, all right? Because it's quite cerebral. So it's going to appeal to the cerebral ones. I have found that this tool is very effective for people when we're stuck in our emotions. When the emotions are so intense that we actually can't feel them, or we can only feel them momentarily and then we shy away from them. Sometimes, if you use your mind first, it helps you to access the emotion better. All right. So this is probably not making any sense to you, but it will once I explain to you how this works. All right. So I'm just putting the caveats right up front there. Do not use this to try and avoid your shadow, the trauma, or your feelings, because you can. It's very seductive for that. All right. Okay. So we've spoken a bit about the law of opposites. So I'm just going to do a little bit of talking and then I'm going to do this whiteboard thing. I just want to put this on the speaker view. Okay. So so the mystics say that in the beginning there was just one energy. There was one energy. So in the Bible, when God, the creation story, when God separated the heaven and the earth, right? He separated the firmament from the heavens. That was when that one energy got polarized into two. There was heaven and there was earth, right? And so the truth is that when we are connected to our spirits, our God self, our higher minds, whatever word term you want to use, then we can access the oneness. But we live in this reality where everything seems to be split into two. So with our rational thinking minds and with our ego, we are living in what looks like duality. So where I am in South Africa now, it's night. But where my client is in America, where my daughter is in America, it's afternoon, it's day. So it's light there and it's dark here. But the truth is, light and dark is happening at the same time on the earth. It's just that where I am, I can only see dark outside. And where she is, she can only see light outside. But it doesn't mean that somewhere else in the world, the opposite isn't happening at the same time. Okay. And so that's actually part of coming to grips with this law of opposites, that two things can exist and actually be true at the same time. So let me get that whiteboard. I'm actually getting the whiteboard off. I'm putting it off. So funny. Okay, so I want to just do this. Oh, now it's asking me all sorts of things. Host only. All right. No, I don't want to do that. So is it now going to let me share it? All right, let me just do this. Sorry. Now I'm having a tech problem. Okay, let me try again. New whiteboard. That's what I want. Okay, here we go. Okay, so can you all see on your screen the whiteboard? Just give me a little thumbs up if you can see it. Antoinette, can you see it? I can only see you, so.
It says brainstorm, plan, visualize, draw, and annotate. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, I've taken that part off. You should just be able to see a whiteboard with a pen at the moment.
Now I can, and Gesha's name and Robin's name. Yeah, now I can see just the whiteboard. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Perfect. All right. I don't actually know why Robin and Gesha's name is there, but we will have no idea. No
That's
idea. Now Antoinette's name's also popped on there. Wait, I think she actually think I know.
Mine was translating into German, whatever was on the whiteboard.
Oh
It was
my goodness.
automatically translating into German,
Oh,
yes.
okay. All right. That's the AI for you. Okay. So I want you to
Looks like
imagine
minimal art.
that when we start, okay, so I'm going to use the term God. All right. You can think of, oh, look at this. Looks like I'm 2 years old. Okay, look there, all right? You can think of this as the universe, the source of the divine. But when we born, we imagine we have this little spark of light and we are vibrating at an extremely high frequency. And as we come closer and closer to actually incarnating into this body, our frequency becomes denser and denser and denser and denser. All right. And so just imagine that at around about here, we form our physical body. So think of this as your physical body, or that's PB for physical body. All right. So we spend the rest of our lives trying to go back up here to get over here again. Right. So we come down here, we have the great forgetting, we forget who we are. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to get back to who we really are. And this wave, this frequency wave, actually is a spiral like this. If you're looking at it from the top, it's going to look like this. Okay, now you're going to get why I'm going there. I'll show you now. And up until a short while ago, a couple of years ago, the smallest unit of matter in the universe, I'm going to delete this now, was a photon of light at a particular frequency. And so we can use the photon to actually understand the law of opposites. So imagine you've got a y-axis like this. That's supposed to be a straight line, guys. And you've got an x-axis like this, all right? And remember this thing, this that I drew? This is how the wave is getting denser and denser and denser. We're going to take one of these waves, right? So this wave is one wavelength of light. This tiny little photon, it's supposed to be equal on both sides. So in physics, what they discovered was, first they thought, I can't remember, they thought light was a wave. Then they discovered actually light is very unique because it acts as a wave and a particle, right? So I'm going to take two little particles here. And each one of these particles is called a fermion. And each one of these fermions has got what they call equal and opposite spin. So this one is spinning in this direction, and this one is spinning in that direction, and they've got equal and opposite charge. And what they thought was that these two communicate with each other. And so Einstein and a colleague of his, they managed to separate these two fermions in something called a cloud chamber. And they postulated that if they put magnets on this one and they change the direction of the spin, then this one will change depending on the distance between them. And this, in other words, this one is going to transmit an impulse to this one at the speed of light over the distance that they've separated them. So there's going to be, this one's going to change, and then a short time later, that one's going to change. But what they discovered was that when they put the magnets on the one, the other one changed instantly. And Einstein called this spooky action at a distance because they didn't actually know why it was. And what they discovered was that in actual fact, it seemed as if these two particles were separate from each other, but they were actually entangled with one another. In other words, they were in a relationship with one another, entangled, part of the same whole. Now, you're going to see why we're going there. But first, I want you to imagine, do you remember those child's tops? You know, spinning tops that you used to wind the string around the top, right? And then pull the string, let it go, and then the top spins. Sorry, I'm trying to color this in. I want you to imagine that this is one of those tops. And that half of it, okay, mine's not going to be solidly black, right? But then half of the top is painted black, and the other half of the top is painted white. So I want you to imagine that we can get this top spinning at infinite speed. So if this top, this black and white top, was spinning at infinite speed, what color do you think it is? When you look at it, what color do you think you're going to see? Anybody?
Gray.
Right. It's going to look like it's gray. Exactly. It's going to look like it's gray because it's going to be going so fast. You're not going to be able to distinguish the black and white. They're going to be spinning so quickly that you're not going to see that half is black and half is white. You're going to say the top is gray. And if it's spinning at infinite speed, it's going to actually look like it's standing still because it's going to be so upright, right? When it's going really fast, it's upright. And because it's going so fast, the friction between the top and the air is going to make the top hot, and it's going to be radiating. So when we are operating at the level of our higher mind or our spirit or our God self, we are looking at the world not in black and white, but we're looking at the world as both together. That spinning gray top. And it's poised, it's still, it's centered, and it's radiant. This is what we're like when we are connected to our higher self or our higher mind or our spirit, whichever term you want to use. Now, as this top starts slowing down, the slower it goes, if I'm standing over here, let's say I'm standing here and Mariela's standing here, and at the same time, someone calls color, Mariela's going to say the top is white, and Loretta's going to say the top is black. Because we are going to be blind to what's on the other side, right? We're only going to see the side that's facing us. And the slower the top goes, the more the top's going to start wobbling. It's going to start becoming unsteady on its axis. And eventually, it's going to become so unsteady that it's going to fall over and it's going to come to rest. And whichever side it comes to rest on, we won't see. And if it comes to rest on the black side and you ask me what color is the top, I'll say it's white. And if it comes to rest on the white side, I'll say what color is the top, and I'll say it's black. It's the same if you had a coin, for example, different metaphor. If you look at the coin in its totality, you can see it has a side that is heads and tails. If you flip the coin and you let it fall on a flat surface and you say, what does this coin look like? You're only going to describe the coin, assuming you didn't know what a coin was. You would describe only what you're seeing, half of the coin. And so this is what happens with our rational thinking and or what we call our lower mind. At the level of the higher mind, we are the spinning gray top that's spinning super fast. In other words, we see it as one. We don't see it as divided, black and white. We see it as gray. We're calm, we're poised, and we're radiant because we are expressing the radiance of our spirit. But at the level of the lower mind, or what we call the rational mind, we are this black and white top that's generally fallen over. And so we're only seeing one side of the equation. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the science, but there is a scientific theory called the collapsing waveform theory. And the same thing happens with light. If you're observing a photo, if you're observing light, it turns into a particle, and often you're only seeing half. So in other words, you might not be seeing this part of the wave, and or you're seeing you're seeing this part, but you're seeing the bottom, but you're not seeing the top, right? So light behaves in the same way. So when an observer is looking, first of all, it turns from a wave into a particle, and generally we only see one of them. Okay. So why is this important? Because these are the polarities or the opposites. So hold on a second. This thing allows me to put text in, which is going to look much better than me typing. Here we go. Okay. So imagine over here, we've got happy. I mean, who doesn't want to be happy? We all want to be happy, right? So we've got happy over there, which means that its polar opposite is going to be sad, right? Over here, we're going to have, John DeMartini calls these the 4 H's of delusion. We're going to have harmony. This means always peace, always peaceful. And over here, we're going to have war, all right? Inner conflict, all right? So conflict, I mean, war is a very strong word, but it's going to land. On this side, over here, we're going to have health, perfect health. And on this side, we're not going to have necessarily disease as you think of it as a diagnosis, but we're going to have dis-ease, right? So it's not going to be perfectly healthy. And on this side, if we really are super, super good and we do all the right things, we're going to have heaven. This is bliss, eternal bliss. And on this side, we're going to have the opposite of heaven, which is hell. And so the reason why he calls these the 4 H's of delusion is because he says that human beings think that we can have happy, harmony, health, and heaven without sad, war, disease, and hell. In other words, our minds tell us that we can strive for only one half of the wave. Now, this works both ways. And the reason why I really wanted to explain this to you tonight in this way is because I want you to know that when you're here, look, when we're here, okay, happy, harmony, healthy, and heaven, nobody really wants to change. But in Chinese medicine, the emotion associated with the heart and small intestine is joy, excessive joy. And I've often described that as when you are falsely positive. But it can also be when you are wildly enthusiastic, super exuberant, right? Because that can be a pattern for some people. And that can be as dysregulating as being really sad and depressed. Because it's just as if this is the mean, if this is the middle ground, which is what we're aiming for, right? This is the sort of poised place. This is where the top is spinning at infinite speed. Then the further away you get from the middle, the more dysregulated you're going to be. So when something amazing happens, let's use the example of you fall in love, right? And you're super infatuated. You fall in love and you meet the person of your dreams. Very few people go and say, oh, this person is kind and generous and respectful and considerate and sexy and whatever. And they go, oh, I wonder what the downsides are of the person. When we're infatuated, we're blinded to the downsides. We don't want to see the downsides. Nobody, when we're here, wants to actually take a reality check and go, what could be the downsides? In other words, where is this side already showing itself? Not so that you can prepare for the downside, so that you can actually recognize the truth and that these opposites exist at the same time. And so when we're down here, which is when we're feeling really shit, if we might not know what the upside is, but just knowing there is an equal and opposite upside can actually help to calm our nervous system down and get us to a point of more clarity. So the other thing that's significant about this is that when we are addicted to one or the other, in other words, when we are habitually, when I say addicted, we're habituated to being in one direction or another. If we are constantly striving to be only here and we're not looking at the truth that these things come in pairs, and I'll give you some examples, then what happens is we create unconsciously, please, this is unconscious. Nobody does this consciously. We create, wait, hang on a second, I need my pen again. We create circumstances that equilibrate us. So shit starts happening. Okay, now we're not so great. Oh, these are little minus signs, okay? This little fermion has got a positive charge. It's not good or bad, it's just one way. And this little fermion's got a negative charge. So when we are constantly pretending to be happy, when we're constantly zen, when we're never feeling our feelings, when we're not acknowledging that we're angry, things happen that piss us off more and more and more, basically. And ultimately, we might get down to here. All right. And now we're sad, we're at war with ourselves or someone else. We've got signs and symptoms, maybe, or we've got some sort of tragedy in our life. Okay. But by the same token, when we're down here, we have the potential, if we know what we're doing, to create this. Because built into this universal design, oh, hell, this is a plus sign, okay, with a little circle around it. Built into this universal design is the mechanism to get us to here. Because when we get here, what happens is our nervous system calms down and we get clarity and we can actually see what our next step is. And when we get the next step effectively, then we can move out of this little pattern that we're stuck in, right? So an example of these polarities would be, this would be good, for example, this side, and this would be bad, all right? This would be support, this would be challenge. In terms of what's happening in your physiology, you can think of your sympathetic nervous system as operating here. In other words, when you're challenged, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, fight or flight. When you are, this is parasympathetic. When you are supported, beg your pardon, when you're supported, your parasympathetic is activated, all right? When you're challenged, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. So in the body, this happens too. So when you are constantly challenged and you cannot see the upside because you're blind to it, then you get sympathetic overload and you get physical symptoms associated with the sympathetic dominance. When you are on this side and you are never seeing the reality of the fact that these things go together, these things come in pairs, then your parasympathetic nervous system becomes overactive, and then you have too much relax and digest and reproduce, and then you become slow and sluggish and torpid and have no movement. Over here, you become activated and you become hyper and you become anxious, and all right. And so this sounds like a good place to be, but honestly, it's just as dysfunctional as being down here. It's just a different set of dysfunction that you're getting. So this model of opposites is literally built into our physiology. Masculine and feminine. This has got nothing to do with what gender you identify as. We have masculine aspects and we have feminine aspects. The masculine is more associated with the sympathetic nervous system. The feminine is associated more with the parasympathetic nervous system. They're both operating at the same time and equally. Now, when you are having a really shit time, when you've got a disease, when you are depressed, when you are on the bathroom floor, if I said to you, oh, well, just find the benefits and then you'll feel better, you probably want to slap me. All right. I get that. But the truth is that another part of this mechanism kicks in when we're either constantly up here in a sort of a false kind of way or constantly down here. So what happens up here when we're addicted to this? So you can imagine success is over here and failure is over here, right? I mean, these are arbitrary distinctions because this is how we socially apply this to these things. So what happens here? Imagine you've got, this is a very stereotypical, and sorry, it has a gender bias, okay? So it's not woke. It's not politically correct. So here you have rich, successful businessman, taken 30 years to build his business, super wealthy, super successful. So what happens here is when we are not aware of what the other side is at the same time, a couple of things happen. The first thing that happens is we get distracted. So, rich businessman gets distracted by low priorities because what he does is he has an affair with his personal assistant. So he has the affair, he's distracted. So now he's not at work that much because he's busy, right? Doing something else. He's got his eye off the ball. Then what happens is his wife finds out that he's having an affair, and so she files for divorce. But they're married in community of property. So now he's going to lose half his money. So he's challenged, right? Challenge kicks in. Then he ignores this, carries on doing what he's doing, and then he finds out that actually, this is an extreme example, his wife's having an affair with his accountant, and together they've stolen all the money out of the business, and they're in the Bahamas, and he can't touch them. So he's humbled now, right? The story comes out. It's all over the newspapers. Everyone knows that he cheated on his wife, first thing, sorry. And then he discovers that actually she's had an affair with the accountant, and they've run away with all the money, and he has nothing. And of course, the personal assistant leaves him because now he's poor. So when we get addicted to this side, when we always want to be here and we never want to see this side, we don't want to see the downside, what happens is we become distracted, we attract challenge, we become humbled, and ultimately we attract some sort of tragedy, and then we end up being here. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that this is really what I want you to know. When you're down here, so now what happens is this guy goes and he has to sleep on his friend's couch, right? Because now he's got nothing and everyone's left him and he's a pariah. Okay. So what he does is he realizes, well, look, he got rich once before. He can build a successful life again. So what does he do? He becomes focused. And one or two of his good friends and his mother stand with him. And so he gets supported, right? He has some support. There are some people out there who are rooting for him. And then what happens is as he's more and more focused and starts regrowing his business, sorry, this has got to move. What happens then is he becomes, he starts restoring his pride in himself, right? So his pride starts getting built. And eventually, it's not really comedy that he creates, but he creates some joy for himself. That's the comedy, okay? So when we're up here and we're flying high, because we're blind to the reality of what's on the other side, we can start becoming distracted. We can start sabotaging. We can start becoming challenged. We can start becoming humbled. We realize, shit, I don't have my shit as together as what I thought I had it, right? And then, these are very strong words, tragedy. And then, we become miserable. And then we end up down here. But when we're down here, we have the potential to start becoming focused, supported, have our pride built, and create happiness for ourselves. But we have to ask the questions. We have to ask ourselves when we're down here, okay, what am I going to focus on? So you might decide, okay, I'm going to focus on healing because you have a diagnosis of some sort, right? And so what you do is you join the hub. You listen to the recordings. You listen to the podcasts. You study some other people's materials. You start doing the homework. Now you're focused, right? Yeah, you are. You're focused, right? And you've got everyone else in the hub, for example, supporting you. So, in fact, I'm going to use Norma as a good example because on the group she said something like, "I'm going to overcome this, or I'm going to heal from this." Remember, right? And so she puts out the message. She's had a bad thing happen to her, right? She's got the disease, right? The stroke. So she puts out a message, and in her message she goes, "I am going to heal this." She's already focused on what it is that she wants, the outcome, and then she gets supported by not just us in the group. She might be getting supported by her friends and her families outside of the group, but she is being supported. And the more she's focused and the more supported she is and the more action she starts taking and she slowly starts clawing her health back, she's going to start feeling not necessarily pride in herself, but as if she can do this. We start creating momentum. That's the pride part, okay? It's not like proud, like, oh my God, I'm so amazing. It's like proud, like, you know what, actually, I'm not a total loser. I can do this. And the more we actually act on that, the more likely we are to actually start creating the outcomes of what we'd love. So you might go, okay, So what do we actually do with this? I mean, what's the value of this? Well, the value of this is to ask yourself, in whatever situation you find yourself in, is to ask yourself this question. Let's say you feel like you are in deep trouble. You have to ask yourself, what is the situation I'm in forcing me to do, be, or have? That's the first place to start. So let's say it's forcing you to rest. I'm going to use Robin's example of when she fell. What did it force Robin to do? It forced her to rest. Okay, so how's the rest a bit? I've forced her to come to a standstill. Well, how's the rest benefited you? Well, maybe it gave her, I mean, Robin, sorry, I'm just putting words in your mouth. It maybe gave Robin time to think. It gave her time to evaluate her life. It gave her time to look into why did this happen? It gave her insights into what was going on that led to this, for example. It gave her insights into what she may want to change in her life. It may have woken her up to a truth. Those are all benefits. Now, does it mean that Robin had the most amazing time because she fell and she hurt herself? No, because all the drawbacks are still there, guys. The reality, the truth is, it was shit. It was painful. She was in pain. She may have been scared. I don't know, whatever it is. So she had all the drawbacks. This is not about whitewashing it. This is not about turning a negative into a positive or turning a positive into a negative. This is about accessing our ability to see the big picture using our minds. And John DeMartini said that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And so one of the questions can be, what is this forcing me to do, be, and have? And what is the benefit of that? And then if I do this, like if I've done this thing, what's the benefit of that? So, now in hindsight, we might be able to say to Robin, okay, Robin, so what was the benefit? And she might go, well, I had this benefit and this benefit and this benefit and this benefit, this way. If you can do it while you're in the dwang, it doesn't take away your problems, but what it does is it brings your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system into harmony so that you're not so dysregulated and you don't feel like you're going in circles and you're in a dark tunnel. And it actually allows you to come to a point of some stillness and clarity, just enough so that you can actually ask God, the angels, or do the exercise to connect to your spirit, which I'm going to teach you how to do next time probably, so that you can get the next intuitive step for you to take on your journey. So it's not a cure-all. This is not about turning positive into negative. This also doesn't mean that when good things happen to you, you know how when good things happen, a lot of people have like, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, this is too good to be true. I wonder when this is going to go wrong. I mean, this is common, right? It's very common. And the reason why we have that is because we think that if it's good now, it's going to become bad later. But if you can see that the good and the bad are happening at the same time, you don't have to worry about either the bad happening later or the good happening later. Do you get what I'm saying? You can actually be more present. You can be more in the moment. And so if an example on this side, I'm gonna end with this now because I've been banging on for a long time. If you can on this side, right? Well, let's just say you win the lottery. You win the lottery, it's 50 million euro. Now, who wouldn't want to win the lottery? Okay, I would. I really wouldn't mind. However, once you've won the lottery, right? You've got 50 million euro. What are the downsides? Well, you're going to have family you didn't even know you have that are going to come out of the woodwork, Brew. Every charity that knows you is going to be knocking you up for money. Do you have any idea how to manage 50 million euro? If you're me, no cooking clue, really, right? So now you potentially have to trust someone else to manage your money. If you trust someone else to manage your money, what if they steal your money? What are you going to do with the money? How are you going to spend the money? What are you going to do with the guilt that you may feel that there are millions of people starving and you with 50 million euros? So maybe you're going to become a philanthropist, whatever it is. What I'm trying to say is there's a downside the moment you win the 50 million euro, whatever that is. So I've seen this with clients of mine who've got cancer. They go on their whole cancer journey. They do the chemo, the radiation, whatever they do, and they get here and they clear. They're in remission. And when they get the remission, one of the first things they're worried about is what if it comes back? The downside is almost there immediately for them, all right? And that's normal. And it doesn't mean you've got to try and make the downside positive. It's not. It's just recognizing that the opposites occur together constantly. But here's the thing, the last thing I'm going to say about this. This does not happen automatically, guys. Your autopilot is to only see one side and not see only the upside of being in love with this amazing human. And then after 3 or 4 years, you're like, oh my God, you are not the person that I married and I cannot be in this relationship anymore. Well, because now you've seen the whole person. In the beginning, you only saw half the person, right? And when you're down here, you're so sick and tired of seeing the part of the person that you were blind to, you forget about the qualities that the person had that you fell in love with in the first place, right? And our rational mind does not see the whole picture automatically. It does not do that. And so we have to train ourselves to do that. So the Buddha said, the pursuit of that which is unattainable, always happy, this is my words, always happy, never sad, and the avoidance of that which is unavoidable, the fact that they always come together, is the source of all human suffering. And Antoinette sent me a beautiful quote from the Tao Te Ching, and it says, "Above, it's not only bright. Below is not only dark. It's everything. Below, where you might expect darkness, it's bright, and above, where you might expect light, it's dark. This where you might expect only light, there's light and dark. Where you might expect only dark, there's dark and light, right? Keep this paradox in mind, and you'll be neither an unlimited sentimental idealist or a cynical pessimist. You won't be a sentimental idealist or a cynical pessimist, only down here, right? You will be part of the transformation of it because it is happening within you. So the reason why we on the bathroom floor, then we feel a bit better. Then we're like, okay, I'm doing this, I feel great. And then whoops, we're back on the bathroom floor. And then we get stuck in these things are called oscillating structures. Is not only because we can't see the other side. It's very often because when we're trying to get out of it with our mind, without actually connecting to and aligning with our spirit or our higher mind or our God self, we are essentially doomed to run this circuit. So we've got one of two choices. If we can see the upside here and we can see the downside here, we actually have the light bulb going on and we can get out of the structure. Or if we can connect to the vision of what our spirit truly loves, we can get out of the structure. Connecting to your spirit is somewhat simpler, I think. But both of them ultimately help to get us to this point so that we can ascend to the next level of mastery.